think like a marketer in the context of think campaigns over courses. And that's really can be as simple like we talked about. Just take bits out of your annual compliance course. Take things you already have and think about aligning with the learning science that we talked about and drip those out over time in the right places, right? So develop a content strategy. It's super simple. And the best thing about that campaign approach or that campaign mindset is you don't need any complicated tools. It doesn't cost you anything, right? Use the tools you already have. It's free. And like we said, it aligns with the learning science and all the things. It's really win-win.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're watching from. My name is Matt Pierce, host of Visual Lounge, and I'm so excited for today because it's going to be such a great conversation. We're going to be talking about repurposing. Now, we've talked about this before, but it's always good to get different perspectives, different ideas. And, the thing is, you make a lot of content, but, if you just make it once, that's great. But what if that content could spawn into multiple pieces of content to support your goals, your objectives, the outcomes that you're looking for? Because reality says that if you make a video, people might watch it once, but then they have tasks to do. So we're going to talk about that with none other than Mike Taylor. So Mike, just gonna have you jump on here. You've been to the Visual Lounge, so introductions we can put in the doobly-doo, how people can contact you, all that stuff. But so glad that you're here today.
Yeah, always good to talk with you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Mike. So first and foremost, we got to mention you've got a new book out. That there is a section about repurposing. What's the name of the book, and where can people find it?
Think like a marketer, train like an L&D Pro. We've got a whole chapter on content strategy, which includes repurposing. It's on Amazon, ATD, all the places where you get books normally.
Perfect. And we'll have a future episode with you and your co-author, Bianca Bauman. So that'll be awesome. We'll look forward to that. Okay, but let's dive in, Mike, because where I want to start is the reality is we know we've got lots to do. I got too much to do, too little time. Why should I even start thinking about repurposing my content?
Yeah, so I think there's a probably maybe intuitively a misperception of repurposing is just more work, and actually I think it's the counter to that. And our book is all about marketing techniques and things that L&D people should steal and use and get better L&D results. And if you think about what marketers do, marketers will have a webinar, and that's not the end of the line. So in training, we have a webinar and you might record it and you might post it somewhere, and that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
But what marketers will do is they will squeeze all of the juice out of that recorded. So I could have seen it live, I could see it recording, but they'll take that recording and they will break that up into an email sequence or a landing page or job aids or key quotes. Or, I really like audiograms. So like they'll pull out clips of that and distribute it in multiple places. And really what you're trying to do is, it's not about having the best content because your content's not any good if people don't see it. So you're trying to expand your reach. Maybe you put it on different platforms because maybe they missed it the first time, right? And so we're just trying to expand our visibility and our reach. Maybe you put a spin on it for a different context or a different audience. And so most training teams are leaving a lot on the table by just, hit the recording, you post it in SharePoint and hope for the best.
Yes, just hope for the best. And that works out so well in training, right?
And we usually have no idea whether they even watched the recording or not. So, we're putting a lot of weight into that hope step right there.
Yeah. And, as someone who now sits in marketing, it is interesting. I think we often talk about if you said it once, you haven't said it at all, right? It's like you said it 100 times, maybe someone has heard it, right? And so I do love that. So I do think there's that feeling though that, okay, from a marketing perspective, you're making this content and the goal is awareness, visibility, trying just people like, if I make an ad, the goal is as many people that can see that, hopefully they're in the right kind of persona, target audience. But from learning, uh, we are a little bit more targeted, right? We need to be a little bit more focused. So
Hopefully.
so what does that say to, like, if I'm starting to hear this, I'm thinking about, okay, well, I've got this. Maybe it's a webinar training, maybe it's a work, but who knows what the content is? But what should I be thinking about, and to really get the most out of repurposing? Are there any considerations, factors to think about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing, if you take nothing else away from this whole conversation, is the idea of thinking in campaigns instead of courses. TechSmith would never run an ad one time and stop and think that that's going to move the needle at all. Like, and it sounds silly to even think about that, right? But
Right.
yet that's what we're doing. We'll run a training and nothing else. And again, the hope comes back in again. We're crossing our fingers and hoping for the best. And so it's really, we have to understand, like, one single touch point is probably not going to impact behavior. And so if we have, there's a way to think of it is you could kind of, marketers call it pillar content. You could call it hero content. It's like those big meaty pieces, the webinars and workshops and e-learning courses, that sort of top level of the pyramid, if you imagine, that you can start to break down. So if you kind of step down that pyramid, you could break that into supporting content. Could be job aids, could be blog posts, could be ebooks, right? And then if you go one more level down, now you could get, maybe that becomes an infographic or micro learning or key quotes and takeaways. And so it's really, the concept is simple, but it comes back to, if we're thinking in campaigns, you mentioned personas, right? So we want to get the right people in the right place, the right time. And so it really is thinking of a campaign and where are your people, right? Like, so maybe you have something like Yammer, or you have an active Teams community, then you have to sort of think about channels and content, and it's really like a matrix to get the right mix.
Well, I really appreciate that idea, because I've often thought about, particularly on the customer education side, much more about kind of bigger campaigns, right? Customer ed is adjacent to marketing, which is also adjacent to learning. So I do like that. Let's can we break that down a little bit for someone? Because someone might be saying, I have no idea what a marketing campaign, how would I do that? And it does sound like there's different pieces of content. Sounds like you got some platform decisions. Are there other things that go into kind of thinking about framing it as a campaign versus a course? Which, again, I love the distinction. I do have some questions about
Yeah, absolutely.
helping people do that.
Absolutely. So here's a simple one that's kind of comes from my day job. So I'm at Nationwide in a cybersecurity uh, group. Typically, not the most exciting, thrilling content, topic, subject matter, whatever you want to call it. But what we do is we have regular broadcasts, which we record. So we have, you know, a webinar, call it whatever you want. But we don't just, put that on the calendar and hope for the best. So we will integrate that with other things that we're doing. So I send a newsletter every 2 weeks. At the bottom, it's got other events, other resources. So what's important? So we're trying to triangulate. We'll put it on our intranet. We'll put it on we have a cybersecurity specific page on the internet. So we're trying to leave breadcrumbs and trails and pointers so that people, if they miss it once in one place, we're trying to maybe catch them somewhere else. So we will do some promotion in front of that event. Could be in the newsletter, could be a teaser, trailer, video, um, could be just, a really relevant, appealing, shocking quote, a statistic, right? So something
Yeah.
that's like, why would I? So you have to set a hook, right? So marketers talk about hooks. Why would somebody care? How is it relevant to them in their job or in their life? And just because it's important to the organization doesn't mean it's important to the individuals unless we can show them how it relates to them personally. And another thing from the book that we talk about is we have this SURE model. So it needs to be simple, and they need to be able to get it quickly. Has to be useful, personally relevant to them. And then the other piece, which for whatever reason often sort of feels taboo, is it needs to be emotionally resonant.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can't put out dry corporate speak and expect people to be excited to come to something. And so if you combine all of these pieces, that's sort of pre-event. We host the event. We sort of apply those principles while we're in the event. Afterwards, we're going to do some more publicizing, sharing. We'll take that and we'll split out the highlights. So maybe somebody's got a really great analogy or a scenario. We'll clip that out, and then we'll drip that out in different places. And so you can kind of start to see, that's a real simple example, but you kind of start to see some of the pieces fit together there.
Well, I love that, right? Because it is kind of getting to the essence of your sure model, particularly that relevance. I talk about that on the podcast all the time, and the emotion, right? The emotional kind of connection. In fact, today I was in a workshop talking to people who I don't think most of them had made video before. And we were talking about scripting and storyboarding. So early on in the video creation process, and I put up a visual that said hear and see, which are two components of video. And in the middle was feel, right?
Yes.
And even in a learning thing, we want people to feel like, I feel that's important, or I feel that's connected. And I can see from a campaign perspective that you're not just thinking about that for the one piece, but it's tying in across all the things.
Everything. Yes.
So,
And
Mike,
I one thing, just one thing,
Yeah.
that feel, so I've been doing this for a long time, and it seems like when that feel piece comes up, people start to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And whatever you're putting out is causing a feeling, whether you know it or not. And if you haven't been intentional and put thought into it, the feeling is probably not one you want them to have.
Yes. Well, it might be just feeling of like, oh my gosh, I don't have time for this, or I feel that I'm overwhelmed, and this is one more thing on top of my things that I'm required to do. In fact, I just went through some security training talking about some of our AI policy stuff, and I was like, how am I going to have time to do this? And the initial communication was, you have to do this in this time, but the feeling was, and it was good. I'm glad I did it, like when I got done. But yeah, setting people up is obviously a key piece.
And so that, I think this is the low hanging fruit. If anybody has never done a campaign, they can't even spell campaign. Like the easiest way to get started with a campaign is take an annual compliance course. We all have them. Cybersecurity, ethics, privacy. We've probably got a handful of them. Take the content you already have in your e-learning course, pull out 6 or 12 snippets, small pieces, and drip those out over the course of the year to people. Just, put it in an email, put it in a micro learning, and it's reinforcing your annual training, because it's silly to think that somebody's going to watch something once a year and that's going to stick with them. It's just not. And so there's a lot of learning science, right? Like this repetitive spaced learning, all of the things align, which is a cool thing when the learning science aligns with the sort of marketing mindset here. And that's easy. Anybody can do it. Probably you could sit down in an afternoon. You've already got the content. You're just sort of copying and pasting it, maybe publishing in a new place. That's like slam dunk, easy. Everybody should do that.
So, okay, I want to put on my, I'm in this, doing this. I want to take this to my boss, my management, whomever. I imagine that there's some who will get pushback, right? Oh gosh, Mike, we don't have time to do blah, blah, blah. And I know you just said it's an afternoon. The cost shouldn't be super high here. But there is things that you have to, probably don't have a system that drips out emails for you at this point. So at least if you're in most learning departments I talk to. So how do you sell this idea? Because I do think from a repurposing standpoint, what you just said was like, yep, that makes total sense to me. In fact, I know I've forgotten a lot from that course I just took, so maybe I need to be reminded. But like, how do you sell this internally to leadership that, hey, we should do a campaign over just a course? Because you're not saying get rid of the course, I don't think.
Yeah, no, not at all.
It's an additive, right? But additive is often seen as like, gosh, we've already got so much to do.
Yep. So two things. Most of our leadership is probably pushing us to use AI more. So AI can be a huge help with this. That's one. The bigger one, probably the more important one that will help you open that door is look for, what are the business problems you're trying to solve? My guess is you probably have content that will address that already without recreating the wheel. So, for example, cybersecurity in our world, we send monthly phishing tests, simulated phishing tests that mimic what we're seeing real. So we see a trend of certain type of phishing email, then we'll create a test so that people can recognize it. If they fail it the first time in the simulated one, they're not risking a breach, right?
Mhm.
So um, you can send it towards a problem that you're having because it's our job, right? Solving problems. For example, we noticed new hires were failing those simulated phishing tests significantly higher than people who had been here longer. So we did an A/B test. Half the new people just get the regular compliance course. The other half get the compliance course plus a little mini campaign, 2 minute or less, 5 weekly emails. A/B test. Measure 6 months later, how are they doing on their phishing tests? We have data. People that got the little mini campaign reported were more likely to report 15 to 20% more likely to report those phishing attempts than the people who didn't get it. So now I'm solving a problem and I have data to show that it's working. So that's like win-win for everybody. And if you can find those little small experiments, then that sort of gets credibility and you can kind of get your toe in the door and expand it to other places.
Yeah, I
And it
think
was it was not new content. It was stuff we already had that we're repurposing exactly what we're talking about.
fantastic, and I love that you have data for that because it does seem like that just we're quick to say no or think we can't do it but the testing, it seems like that would be an easy enough thing to do. Company policies, procedures, things you already have, break it up. The weekly email, it's not hard to send out to your staff or whomever it might be.
Yeah, and so you know, there are email platforms specifically for corporate. So even if you're in a corporate behind the firewall type of world, there are systems and they're not expensive at all. Internally, we use one called Contact Monkey that works with Outlook and corporate email. I'm a big fan of MailerLite if you're just getting started to test out stuff. Um, if it's not, it's free for up to your first 500 people, and then it's less than $30 a month. So we're talking about next to nothing cost wise.
Yeah. Well, Mike, because we're the visual lounge, let's talk about particularly repurposing
Yeah.
visuals, video, because some of it seems like you could take clips or whatever, you could pull transcripts. Any thoughts on how you can really take benefit from visuals that you might be creating for your training course? Whether it's still, anime, GIFs, video, whatever it might be.
Oh my gosh. So if we had enough time, which we don't today, I, I bet you and I and help with a couple of friends, we could probably come up with like literally 100 ways to repurpose L&D content, right? So we've been talking about webinars, so let's start there. We talked about maybe it's a 60-second highlight or important takeaway, or we pull out quotes and make graphics out of that. We could take webinar transcript and do all kinds of stuff with a blog post or a job aid or a infographic. I love to do infographics or takeaways of here's the steps to apply what was in the webinar. Poll results, right? A lot of times our webinars have polls. Make it a graphic or a chart or something, right? Like there's all sorts of stuff that we can mine here. Take a couple of your impactful slides and maybe that becomes a carousel on LinkedIn or wherever your people are, right? Take the audio and create a podcast episode, edit it or not, right? Maybe you put a intro and a closing and there you go. You've got stuff. Get questions so I can go on here.
Yeah.
I'll stop me
Yeah.
anytime here.
This is
Like
great.
the
Keep
question,
going.
the Q&A and the questions and the follow-up things, right? Take that and, now we've got scenarios, right? Somebody asked a really good question about this security scenario. Well, okay, that's a great question. I don't know the answer. I'm going to find out. and now I've got a scenario for my training or workshops or all of that sort of stuff. It's just once you start looking at stuff in this way, you'll find tons and tons of ways to repurpose it, and it's really no harder than just sort of getting started. If you just take a webinar and brainstorm, come up with 2 or 3 things, right? You're already heading down this path. And the more you do it and the more you see what other people are doing, you'll have this whole huge list of things that you can do.
Yeah. I was thinking, separately than webinars, a lot of like screenshots, right? Screenshots
Okay.
are like, if you got screenshots of you're doing systems trainings, maybe it's, I'm thinking about putting those into like now Camtasia.ai to make a video, or making a step-by-step guide that's going to be a job aid that follows up on the how-to from the workshop or whatever it might be. Right. So many.
Yes. And I love animated GIFs. This is the way I pronounce it. So don't
GIFs.
be
Come
angry.
on,
Don't
Mike.
be angry. Let's
GIFs.
not fight. Let's not fight. But like if you have a Microsoft Office tip or something, right? Like just put it in a little animated GIF. I don't need a 3-page handout for that, right? Which Camtasia makes lovely GIFs with the cursor, all the things that um, Camtasia does well. Like I'm trying to like not run on and you're gonna have to
Yeah,
pull me back because I'm
no,
gonna be talking for days.
but
But
I love this because I think anyone listening can take these ideas, and it's not hard, right? Like I love that you just boom, 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 because but it is a mindset shift here. We're not like, from an L&D perspective. I know in my past role, it was like when I was working in a pharmaceutical, it was like deliver the thing. And I wasn't thinking about the other pieces that could come out of that would reinforce and engage and bring forth that, you talked about the learning forgetting curve, like Evan House forgetting curve, right? Like
yes,
3 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months. If we're expecting performance or behavior change, we can't just let it slide. We can't just be like that. Hey, we told you once. That goes back to the beginning, right? Like I told you once and expect that we've made the impact that we want. And I do think people are often disappointed that that's the outcome that they get, right? Because, oh, I told you once. Oh, you'll do, and we'll do an annual training. Like I think we've had the same training for one of our compliance trainings that's like 3 or 4 years. What's like tweaks update, right? But like I can quote things to you now. So sure now I've got it. I got the funny lines, I know. But
well, that's I guess technically maybe that's a sort of a poor campaign, I guess, because you have the repetition. Um, yeah,
every October though, it's not like it's hitting those things. Well, okay, so Mike, we are coming towards time here, and I want to ask you. Obviously, you laid out amazing ideas, lots of opportunities here for people to start thinking about this. Are there times that this is not a good idea? Is there any parts that you shouldn't choose for repurposing?
I cannot think. I mean, unless something's just so absolutely short and no brainer. But even then, I think I would still find a way to repeat it in some other form. Um, that's a great question. I would love, if anybody leaves comments or uh, has things that might fit that bill. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. That's a fantastic question.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking it's because it's so bad. We don't want anyone to see it.
Oh yeah, well that was my initial reaction. I'm like, oh, I better not say that.
Well, no one out there in this audience is making any bad stuff. But I think, yeah, I'm trying to think of when I couldn't use it. I think I would always say, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Is it really something that needs, or is it just like we need to hit it once and we're done?
I would bet that there's a lot of people that watch this who have had this experience because we are often on the receiving end of a lot of really bad stuff and we have to rescue it, right? And so we do repurpose the really bad stuff and we cut it down and we get rid of that junk and we rewrite the stuff to make it sound better. So my guess is a lot of people are already repurposing. They just don't think of it in that context. Think about all the ugly, painful massive things that we get from subject matter experts that you're like, oh, I can't give that to people. That's another form of repurposing.
Yeah. And as you were talking, that's where my head was going too, that we often get lots of great information, maybe not digestible. And so part of the repurposing is making it digestible, approachable. So, well, Mike, this has been fantastic. I love the conversation. I think we probably need to now come together and maybe at our next event, we'll just brainstorm a list of 100 different ways to repurpose.
I think we could get at least 100. Yeah.
That,
And then hopefully we don't get into a fist fight over GIF versus GIF. That's my fear.
we will not. But I wonder if we came up with a list of 100 things of ways to repurpose, if we could repurpose that list in 100 different ways.
Now you're getting very meta on me here. You're going to hurt my brain.
Well, Mike, before we wrap up, normally we have our dice cam, and I do have a die, and I could ask you a question, but we've had you on the show a couple of times. So I want to flip the script here if you're okay with it. I'm going to give you a chance to ask me a question. Now, normally our speedrun questions are super fast, quick, more fun type questions. So is there anything you would want to ask me? And I'll put AMA, ask me anything.
Well, so I know that TechSmith has had a lot of flurry of updates and lots of cool stuff. You mentioned the Camtasia AI, which I love, by the way. So in the context of this conversation, and we talking about slicing and dicing videos and audio and all of this stuff, if someone is not an expert, what would you advise them?
Oh my gosh, the hard part is where to start, but let's start with where I think a lot of people are, entry point Snagit. If you haven't tried out step capture, it's relatively new and allows you kind of go step by step. You just click on the thing that you want to capture and it gives you a nice document, right? In that document, you have all the images and, so you're literally creating a document that can then be taken those images. You might have to work with this a little bit, but you could send the images, get them into Camtasia. Then you could make a voiceover, or, you could do some things with them inside of Snagit as well, image to video capture. That's where I would probably start. The other thing is I make a lot of videos in Snagit, just kind of like, I think they're going to be one-offs. And then sometimes I'm like, oops, I should have done this in Camtasia because I want to do more with it, right? I'm like, I wish I could move the mouse cursor or whatever. And now you can. You can send that video to Camtasia, and we've keep all the metadata. So then you can edit your video like you would if it was a Camtasia recording. So I think those are big ones. The other thing I'm thinking a lot about from a repurposing is capturing the subject matter expert. So Camtasia.com, or Camtasia Online as we call it, free, easy to use tool. You can give that to, it's pretty simple. Most everyone can figure out how to record something. And then if you're a collaborator on it, you can still bring it into Camtasia for full editing. You can pull it into Audiate to get the transcript. So you can pull your quotes. You can see which pieces you maybe want to make small social clips. I call them social clips, even if they're not going on social, 15,
Yes.
30 seconds, like little highlights like we would do with this show. I think those are some of my kind of key ones. I think Audiate is another great just tool for, again, you get the transcript. You could turn it into like a AI voice or an avatar if you wanted to go that route, or it makes editing just so stinking easy. Just edit the text document and boom, there you go.
I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. I love the idea of like the audiograms, where I get an audio clip and there's sort of an animated or image or video, just kind of, I don't know if you've seen those or if Camtasia has any templates for that.
Oh, we do. So we have the audio visualizer. So you can put there's one that's a ring and it moves. Yeah. It's got the movement. There's a bunch of them you could do, but it's easy to make because you just download them from the free asset library and boom, it's going to follow your audio.
Awesome. I love how well that fits with what we talked about to sort of drive home the point that it's not difficult, right?
And it's mostly with tools that you have. If you have the TechSmith tools or you have other tools, it's easy to, PowerPoint. You can take a PowerPoint and you can create PNGs or JPEGs or, just get images out of that will work in a lot of different places. So, well, thanks for asking, Mike. That's a great question. And I always appreciate a little bit of a product plug. So, Well, Mike Taylor, we appreciate you coming on the show. We always like to end with our, first of all, let's give you a chance to pitch. Where can people find you? Tell us a little bit more about, you told us a little bit about the book, but anything else you'd want us to know about that?
Yeah, so pretty easy to find online if people have questions or you want to follow up. You can learn more about the book, including a blog post about repurposing on our book website, which is trainlikeamarketer.com. I'll have to throw up the list of 100 there. That'll be my challenge between today and when this comes out. So I'm going to see if I can get there. I might have to call in for your help. I'll be at Bianca and I will be at DevLearn here in a couple of weeks, and then December doing an online ATD Core 4 Focus event. So floating around in person and online in a few places here the next couple months.
Well, it's good that you're keeping busy and lots of great stuff that we'll look for the list. We'll look for the book. We'll look for the blog post, all that. We'll put links in the descriptions and things like that. Mike, I didn't prep you for this. I should have. So that's on me, but I always like a final take. So you get to take everything that we've just talked about and summarize it into 30 to 60 seconds. So Mike Taylor, what is your final take?
Well, I think if you don't take anything else away from all of this stuff, it would be think like a marketer in the context of think campaigns over courses. And that's really can be as simple like we talked about. Just take bits out of your annual compliance course. Take things you already have and think about aligning with the learning science that we talked about and drip those out over time in the right places, right? So develop a content strategy. It's super simple. And the best thing about that campaign approach or that campaign mindset is you don't need any complicated tools, doesn't cost you anything, right? Use the tools you already have. It's free. And like we said, aligns with the learning science and all the things. It's really win-win. And so I would say if I could shorten that to a really succinct sort of wrap up, I would say think campaigns and not courses.
Perfect. All right, Mike, thank you so much for joining me here on the Visual Lounge.
Thanks, Matt. Always good to talk with you.
Same. All right, everybody, go check out Mike's stuff. Think about this bigger picture. Put it pieces together, right? You got the big piece of content you're making. There are all the little things you can make. So that's your pillar. And you got all your little pieces to help spread out. And if you think about this metaphor we should have talked about maybe is a tent. So your pillar holds up the center of the tent, and all of the other little pieces make sure the tent stays up right throughout the year. So what a great opportunity to learn and continue to grow, though, of course, because, you gotta keep evolving here, folks. Gotta keep changing and growing our skill sets. And we hope that you do that. We hope you take a little time for yourself to level up every single day. Thanks.